welcome to our program. Today we'll discuss the characteristics of adolescence and study the most troublesome questions that today's teenagers pose to challenge their parents' values. This approach to adolescent issues is a preview of coming distractions and will naturally give rise to some questions. For parents, the passage of their children through adolescence can be either wretched or richly rewarding, depending, among other things, on the parents' clear-headed preparation for it. If young parents think deeply about adolescent issues now, years ahead of time, they can avoid serious problems later. In fact, the years when their children are in secondary school can be one of the most interesting and satisfying periods of their family's life. Long-term planning is intrinsically necessary to successful parenthood, yet it's frequently neglected. Many parents, perhaps most, are involved in the day-to-day and week-to-week task of family life that they seldom think seriously about the end result of all their efforts, namely, what kind of character their children will have when they are grown men and women. Will they be mature, confident, responsible adults who live by Christian principles? Will their marriages be stable, happy, and permanent? If present statistics hold true, many youngsters will be divorced, yes, by the age of 30. Will the children make it through the challenges of adolescence with their faith and character and values intact? Or will they be thrown off the track? These and similar questions can form a basis for deep reflection and action now, so that the children can grow up well. A great many parents are thrown back when their children reach adolescence because they are unprepared for it. All teenagers are more or less rebellious. As part of their natural longing for independence, adolescents challenge the values and authority of their parents. They want to know why certain moral values oblige them. They need to know why the line between right and wrong is drawn and where it is. The simple reply they heard in childhood, "Because we say so," is no longer adequate for them. They need reasons. They need confident and reasonable explanations. This is where so many parents are at a loss. Now, parents who have not thought deeply about moral issues, or at least not for a long time, are uncertain how to answer their adolescents' questions. Since they lack informed convictions, they are wavering in authority, inconsistent in their positions, and edgily defensive. Relations between parents and teens can thus deteriorate into emotional standoffs, shouting matches, power struggles, and the parents' growing sense of helplessness in the face of defiance. It's important for parents to realize that their children need clear moral direction in adolescence. Most young people's challenges are really strategic probes to test their parents' values. Deep down, most children want to grow up and do the right thing, but they need clear, confident explanations of what the right thing really is. Being highly certain of themselves, they're highly critical of everything and everyone around them. Though they would hate to admit it, they earnestly, sometimes desperately need and want decisive moral leadership. That's where this program comes in. If parents can get a preview of what challenges lie ahead, they can prepare realistically for the future. Now, in this program, we'll discuss some of the most common questions that teenagers raise with their parents, and we will provide some reasoned and reasonable answers. All of these, we must emphasize, have come from experienced parents, men and women who have found these explanations effective in dealing with their teenage children. The answers we provide are by no means comprehensive or exhaustive. Our hope is that young parents will take time to think the questions and answers through, talk them over extensively, and very importantly, discuss them with older, more experienced parents as well as with couples their own age. Discussing these issues with friends, with people whose judgment is trustworthy, should provide much practical advice and useful approaches for dealing with the children later when the time comes. This sort of long-range preparation has helped many parents whom we know. Fathers and mothers who have thought about these issues and discussed them with others have found several significant advantages. For one thing, their own confidence is boosted enormously. Far from ever worrying about their children's future in high school, they look forward to giving final form to their children's character and conscience during one of the most interesting periods of life. Holding the hope that their kids will be adult-like rather than childlike in adolescence, they start to take steps now to bring this about. In other words, thinking positively about the children's adolescence affects the way they form the youngsters while they are small. There is a more continuous and steady direction to the children's upbringing with adolescence, thus becoming the final and most formative stage, even the most interesting and enjoyable. Another effect is the way they can deal with the children later. When the children are looking for guidance in adolescence, the parents are ready. They have clear, reasonable answers that they themselves thoroughly understand and believe. The parents' moral leadership can therefore be calm, articulate, balanced, fair, and confident. There is no need for emotionalism or defensiveness. On the contrary, the young people can look to their parents with confidence. Their parents' level-headed teaching can form the basis for their own moral lives as adults in the making. The inner strength of the parents' conscience and the children's resultant respect for it can strengthen the children's resistance to the allurements of materialism and peer pressure. This has worked. Many parents have done this, would you believe it, successfully. Finally, there is the advantage of parental peer support. When parents meet with other couples to discuss their children's common future, they often become deep friends. They offer each other experienced advice and encouragement. They suggest different approaches and give objectivity to potentially emotional situations. They stand ready to help each other when their children grow into adolescence together. Parents today need this sort of outside support from close friends. For generations, parents could rely on family members and close neighbors to give encouragement, sympathy, and advice. They could help with objectivity and sometimes humor. Parents today, isolated as they normally are, need to go out of their way to form this supportive network. After all, when the children are in secondary school, the teens have daily contact with dozens of energetic peers whose rebelliousness and solidarity lend confidence, if not aggressiveness, to the adolescents' defiance at home. Parents therefore need a counteractive peer support of their own. This means relying on friends who share common values and common hope for the children's future. There seems to be, as an inexorable fact of life, a sort of balance in raising children. You either pay now or you pay later. But either way, you pay. Parents who put little trouble into raising their children as youngsters wind up paying dearly later, when the kids are grown. But those who put thought and conscientious effort into the children's youngest years manage to find enjoyment and satisfaction later. The work put into the children's youth and adolescence pays great dividends. Over time, the children grow to become responsible, confident men and women who live by Christian principles, and they can grow to be like this before they're out of their teens. Other parents have done this. So can you. It seems to be a fact that most families in the past have had little serious trouble raising their children through adolescence. The solidity of the family seems to be critical to this success. But even today, in big cities where the family solidarity has taken a beating, countless parents do a fine job in raising their children well. We have known many such parents over the years. Let us sketch a composite picture of their characteristics here. Successful parents maintain a clear ideal, a well-focused concept of what kind of adults they want their children to become. Competent, responsible, generous men and women who live confidently by Christian principles. They think of their children's future character and not too much about their future careers. With this vision before them, they maintain a steady and consistent teaching of responsibility all the way from infancy through adolescence. Their discipline through the secondary school years is a continuation and refined development of everything they taught before. They shift gears, as it were, and pick up speed, but they remain essentially on track. Invariably, there are people who have clear moral convictions, and they live by them. When they have to lecture their teens from time to time, as all parents do, they are simply verbalizing what the children can see for themselves in the way of the parents' lives. In other words, there is a consistency between their principles and their actions. They teach mostly by example. The father takes a more prominent role in guiding the children as they move through adolescence. He works as a partner with his wife. He does not relegate children's issues to her. If anything, he exercises more influence than he did when the children were younger. They are aware of the many moral dangers to their children's welfare, to their earthly and eternal happiness, but they are not overly protective of their children, nor hostile to society. They want their children to be strong, not protected, strong enough in conscience and character to handle these challenges themselves. Long range, they want their children to form or reform their culture, not merely to react to it. They look forward to their children's growing up, becoming young men and women before they're out of their teens. In guiding their children's lives, they do not permit what they disapprove of. They are confident enough to withstand the children's emotional resistance and clash of wills. They sense, quite rightly, that the children must have practice in denial if they are ever to develop a power of self-denial. They know that the kids need help in the midst of emotional entanglements to learn where the line is drawn between right and wrong. Sometimes parents need to show the line forcefully by putting their foot down. They maintain constant communication with their children as they have always done since the kids were toddlers. They understand their children well, and just as importantly, the children understand them. The kids know all their parents' personal history, their judgment and convictions, their mistakes and successes, their hopeful expectations for the family. The children know that their parents have confidence in their integrity and character because they have confidence in themselves and confidence in God's loving providence. Frequently, these successful parents have several close friends who provide encouragement and support for their parental efforts. Consequently, they do not feel isolated. In any case, they have strong religious convictions to rely upon. Frequently, they have a spiritual director, someone who helps them put prayer at the center of their family life. The children's lives are, after all, entirely in God's hands. The parents see themselves carrying out His will for the young lives whom He has entrusted to their care. This picture is, as we have said, just a sketch of the essentials. Individual parents vary considerably in temperament, family history, outlook, family rules, approaches to discipline, guidance, and the like. Regardless of these differences, however, Successful parents seem all to have four fundamental elements in common. 1. A clear vision of their children's future. 2. A determined will to make this ideal become a reality. 3. A commitment to their children's future happiness, especially in their future marriages. And 4. A reliance on God's help in living up to these commitments' implicit responsibilities. We have to be realistic. Even successful parents experience problems, setbacks, disappointments along the way. Responsibility always calls upon us to surpass ourselves, and this means persistent work. But it's worth it. By and large, all things considered, responsible and conscientious parents manage to emerge victorious. They and their children are winners. Now, with these general considerations in mind, let's turn to look at some typical features of adolescence, along with high insights and bits of advice provided by experienced parents.